execute only one command. So you can really delete this here, like this, and then also here, since we have only one command, both here and here, we can delete these brackets here, like this. Okay, so now this code is a bit easier to read. Okay, now, as you can see from this diagram here, it is literally translation of this here and vice versa. So this code here is a translation of this diagram here. And what it means is when our user enters three values for our sides of a triangle, first we are going to check whether all of these three sides are equal. If they are, our program is actually going to say that our user has entered equilateral triangle. But if this here results as false, then we are going to our else block, and then inside that else block we are going to nest another if else. So we are going to check another condition. We are going to execute this if else here, and this if else here is going to check following. So it is going to say, please check if all of these three variables are different values. So if all three sides of a triangle have different lengths. And if they do, we can say that that is a scalene triangle. But if they don't, then since we have already checked that all of them are not equal, and also we have checked here that all of them are not different, we can say now that definitely two of these variables are equal, and that means that our user has entered isosceles triangle. And that is the program that we had here. Okay, so I hope you liked this video, and if you did, this is a strong call to subscribe to my channel and to share it with anyone else who would like to learn programming, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye. Hi everyone, welcome to another video of C++ for beginners. In this video I wanted to talk about operators in C++, and we are going to cover the ones that are used most of the time, but I'm also going to make a separate video for certain operators that have specific use in C++. So in this video we will talk about the ones that are used most of the time and that you really need to know and understand. And also make sure to watch the entire video because I do have some important tips to give you when it comes to this that you really need to understand and that you will find handy for your future progress and learning of programming. The first thing that I wanted to explain is what are operators. You can understand operators as special type of functions that are used to perform certain calculations on arguments or operands, and then based on those arguments and on that calculation, they give you a new value. So the first type of operators that I want to talk about are arithmetic operators. And you are probably familiar with most of these. So there's operator of adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and also one more operator that you may not be familiar with, which is the modulo operator. So all of these are arithmetic operators. And let me give you an example of how these are used. So I'm going to say cout, and then let's write out the result of 5 plus 2. Now let's add one end line. Okay, so this here is the operator of adding, and then these two are operands or arguments, and this here is going to perform certain calculation and then write that out to my console. So if I run my program, we get the expected result, which is 7. So these really behave as you would expect them to behave in maths. But there are certain rules that are specific to programming and that I want to mention. So this operator here, operator of dividing. Let me give you a simple example. If I say cout and then 5 divided by 2 and I add end line, what do you expect to see in this line here? Write that in the comments down below. Now I'm going to run my program, and you see that the result that I've gotten from this line here is 2, but why has that happened? We know that 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. Well, there is a certain rule in programming that says that the result of dividing two whole numbers like this, so 5 is whole number and then 2 is also a whole number, is also going to be represented as whole number. So even though the result of dividing these two is 2.5, that 0.5 cannot really be put inside integer variable, so it cannot be put inside integer container. So just 2 can be put here. And that 0.2 is really lost. If you want to show the real result of dividing these two, what you have to do is you have to make one of these two, or both of them, of a different type. And that type is going to be decimal point number, so float or double. So if you put here 2.0, or you put here 5.0, then in this case, you are going to get the result represented as decimal point number. So you can use it like this, or you can make just one of these of a floating point type. So you can say also like this. And then if I run my program now, you see that now I have got the expected result, so 2.5. That is one rule that you really need to know when it comes to this division operator. And another tip that I want to show you is this operator of modulo. So how do we use this modulo operator? This example here that I've just shown you, let me return this to this situation where I've been dividing two whole numbers, and we've just seen that 5 divided by 2 is going to result as 2. And that 1 that remains, we can get that 1 really with this operator here. So if you say Cout, and then 5 modulo 2, add n line, this operator here is going to give you the remainder of dividing two whole numbers, which are these two. So the result of this operation is going to be that 1. So let me run my program. And you see that we have gotten that expected result. So 5 divided by 2 when it comes to whole numbers. If you're dividing whole numbers, the result is also going to be whole number. And in this situation, it's going to be 2. And then that remainder after dividing two whole numbers, you can get with this modulo operator. And the remainder after dividing 5 with 2 is 1. And you get it with this operator here. So these 5 are really arithmetic operators, and these are also called binary arithmetic operators. Why binary? Well, because they are all used with two operands. They perform their calculation on two operands. There's also another type of arithmetic operators in C++ that are used or that perform calculations on only one operand, and those are unary operators. The examples of unary operators in C++ are this operator here, which is operator of increment, and then this operator here, which is the operator of decrement. So how these are used? Let me give you an example. So let's create a variable of type int, and let's call it counter. And I'm going to assign to that variable a value of 7, for example. So how this operator of increment works is it really increases the value of your variable by 1. So if I say counter plus plus, what this operator is going to do, it's really going to add plus 1 to my counter variable. So 7 plus 1, it should, in this line here, increase value of my counter variable to 8. And let's prove that. Oops, Cout, counter, and then let's add one end line. Okay, if I run my program, you see that we've got expected result. So 8. We've declared a variable of type int called counter, we've given it a value of 7, and then in the next line we applied this increment operator to it, which had increased its value plus 1, so 8, and then after we write out that value of that variable, we got our result. So that is how this increment operator is used. This decrement operator, so counter minus minus, this decrement operator here works reverse. So it really subtracts 1 from this variable here. And if I copy this line here and then paste it, after this line here, our counter should be decreased by 1. So the value of our counter should really again be 7. And if I run my program, oops, like this, you see that we've gotten our 7. So we've gotten the expected result. However, there are specific rules when it comes to these increment and decrement operators. And let me explain what I mean on another example. So I'm going to create another variable of type int, call it counter2, and let's assign it also a value of 7. And what I want to do with this variable here is I want to write out its value, but I want to write out and increment its value in a single line. So I want to do this. So cout counter2 plus plus. And I'm missing this redirection sign here. Okay, so what are you expecting to see in this line here? We've seen that this line here has resulted with 8, and this line here should also result in 8. Let's see. Okay, run my program. And it didn't. In this line here, we have written out 7, but why has that happened? Well, this operator here is increment operator, but it is really post-increment operator. And what that means is that whatever operation needs to be performed on this variable is going to happen first, and then this increment operation is going to happen. So that is called post-increment. Another type of increment is pre-increment, and it is used like this. Okay, and this pre-increment means that whatever operation needs to happen on this variable here, first I'm going to increment it, and then I'm going to perform that operation. So if I run my program now, you see that we now get our 8, same as here. And that is because we have used this pre-increment, which first has increased our variable, and then our variable is written out. Okay, and the same is applied for decrement operators. So for example, if I say cout counter2 minus minus, and then, oh my god, again. Okay, and then if I run my program, you see that we have gotten the same value for this line and this line, so 8. And why that has happened is because we have used this post decrement here. So first our variable has been written out, and after that the value of that variable has been decreased. So just to prove that, I'm going to say one more time cout, and then counter2 without any increment or decrement, just to prove that the value of this variable has been decremented after it has been written out. So if I run my program again, you see that this line here has resulted in 8, and then this line here has resulted in 7. Okay. So you see that our console now is full of some random numbers, and it's really making it hard to read. So what I want to do is I want to clear out my console, but without deleting this code here. So how I'm going to do that? I'm going to use a command that is called system, and then inside these parentheses I'm going to say cls, which really is going to clear my screen. So if I run my program, you see that all of our code is still here, but console has been cleared. So that's because of this command here. That's a quick tip if you need to clear your console. Another type of operators that I want to talk about are relational operators. And these are really used to compare the value of two operands, so two arguments. And relational operators in C++ are following. So we have less than, and then we have greater than, and then less than or equal to, and then greater than or equal to. Then we have just is equal to operator, and then we have not equal to. So these 6 are relational operators in C++. And how these are used, let me show you in an example. So let's say that I'm going to create a variable of type int, call it a, and let's assign it a value of 5, and also create another variable that is called b and assign it a value of 5. So now, if I say cout, and then inside these parentheses, I'm going to say, please write out if my variable a is greater than my variable b. So if my 5 is greater than this another 5, okay, and I'm using these parentheses because I want my cout command to know that this here is one expression that first should be calculated, and then whatever this expression here results in, I'm going to write that out in my cout command. So if I run my program now, you see that we have gotten 0. And if you know about how computers work, you know that they work on zeros and ones, meaning that 0 represents false and then 1 represents true. So in this situation, we have gotten the result of false. So when I ask my computer, is my A greater than my B? So is 5 greater than 5? It says false. No, it is not. Okay. And the same is going to happen if I put here this other operator of less than, like this. But if I, for example, put less than or equal to, so this operator here, and I run my program again, you see that now we have gotten the result of 1. So that is true. That is what our computer considers as true. So our 5 is less than or equal to 5, which is correct. And even better would be if we say just is equal to, and in this situation also we are going to get true as a result, like this, because 5 is equal to 5. And then how we use this operator here is like this. So you can say, is my A not equal to my B? And your computer really hears, is my 5 not equal to my 5? And the response to that is going to be no. It is false because these two are equal. It's the same number even though it's held by two different variables. Okay, I hope you understood these relational operators. And there is also one tip that I want to give you here, and that is, you see this comma sign here. This is also operator in C++. And it is not relational operator, but it is binary operator. And how this operator is really used, because we have seen it before without knowing that it was an operator, it is used as follows. So in this line here, we have said, please create a variable of type int, call it A, and assign it value of 5. And then also, so that is the purpose of my comma, so also create another variable of type int, call it B, and assign it value of 5. So my comma in this situation is operator and separator as well. So it is pretty intuitive. So before we continue, let's add one more of these clear screen commands here. And the next type of operators that I want to talk about are logical operators. And there are 3 of those. So we have logical and then a logical or, and then also not operator. So these 3 are logical operators. And they are usually used to combine 2 or more conditions into one single condition. And I'm going to show you that on an example. And let's use for that example these variables here. Let's just change the value of our B to 8, for example. So what I want to do is I want to write out following. So is my A equal to 5? And then also is my B equal to 5? I want to write out the result of this expression here. And you see that we have used our AND operator to combine these 2 expressions. So if I run my program, you see that the result of this is false. So that is the nature of our AND operator. It really works like this. It says, please check, is my A equal to 5? Yes, it is. And then also check, is my B equal to 5? No, it is not. It is 8. So then this operator says, okay, whatever, then this whole expression is going to be false. Because this operator here needs both of its operands, so this here, and then this here also, both of these need to be true in order for this whole expression to result as true expression. That's the nature of this AND operator. However, there is one more forgiving operator in C++, and that is this operator here, so this OR operator. And if I paste that here instead of our AND operator, and I run my program again, you see that this time we got different result. Now we have true, and that is the nature of our OR operator. So it says, please check if this is true or this here is true. Whichever of these results as true, then I'm going to be true expression. Only in the situation where this here is false and also this here is false, I'm going to resolve as false. In any other situation, this here is going to be true. So that is the nature of OR operator. And then we have also this NOT operator, which really negates whatever comes after it. So if I put it here, for example, you see that you've seen that previously this expression here has resulted as true expression. Now that I negate it, we are going to get false. So that is our NOT operator here. Okay. And there is also one more thing that I want to explain when it comes to the precedence of these operators, which means priority of these operators. So which operator types have the biggest priority? The biggest priority have arithmetic operators. After that come these relational operators, and then the smallest priority have these logical operators. So let me show you that on an example. Let's just comment this very quickly, and let's add another line, but the previous one that we had. So this here, like this, that is the operation that has resulted as false. So is my A equal to 5, and then is my B also equal to 5? And this has resulted as false. But if we, for example, say it like this, what do you think that this expression here is going to write out? So if I run it, you see that we have gotten 1. Why is that so? Well, as I said, the biggest priority have arithmetic operators. So this expression here is going to be executed first. So 5 plus 3. After that, priority have these relational operators. So this operator here and this operator here. So after that comes logical operation. So this expression here is going to be really, is my A equal to 5? Yes, it is. And then also, is my B equal to 8? And the answer to that is also yes. So now both of these operands are true, and our AND operator is satisfied now, and it's going to result as true operation, this whole expression. So you need to remember that the biggest priority have arithmetic operators, so these here, binary and unary arithmetic operators. After that, we have our relational operators, and then the least priority have these logical operators here. Let's add one more of these clear screen commands before we talk about the last type of operators that I want to cover in this video, and those are operators of assignment. And there are 6 of those, and they are as follows. So operator that just assigns value, and then operator that adds and assigns, and then operator that subtracts and assigns, multiplies and assigns, divides and assigns, and modulates and assigns. So these 6 are operators of assignment. And let me show you how they work. So first I'm going to create a variable of type int, and let's call it x, and let's assign it a value of, for example, 5. Okay, so this here is example of this assignment operator here. And that is how it works. It assigns whatever is on the right to your variable on the left. So that is the direction of association. It really says whatever is on my right side, please assign that to my left side. And let me show you now how these here work, because they're a bit more complex. So if I say, for example, x plus equals 7, like this, what this expression here is going to do? Well, let me write out one more expression, and that is x equal to x plus 7. So this expression here and this expression here are just the same. This is just shorter way to write this here. And what this here does, well, this is expression that is not valid in mathematics, but in programming it is. And it does following. So it says, please, whatever is on my right side, assign that to my left side. And why it does that? Well, because this arithmetic operator here has priority over this assignment operator. So if you remember when we were talking about priority, these assignment operators have the lowest priority of all. So whatever is on my right side, that is x plus 7, is going to be assigned to my x variable. So 5 plus 7 is going to be equal to 12, and then that is going to be assigned to your x variable in this line here. And this expression here is really short way to write this here. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out, and if I write the value of my x now, we are expecting to see 12, and it is the result that we have gotten. So this x plus equals 7 is just going to do this, so this expression here. So it's going to add to my x this number here. And the same applies to these operators here. So this one that subtracts and then assigns or multiplies and assigns, divides and modulates. So if you say, for example, x minus equal to 7, then that is really going to result as x is equal to x minus 7. And then that right side is going to be assigned to your left variable, because arithmetic operators have priority over these operators of assignment. And if I run my program again, it really sees 5 minus 7, and that is minus 2. So I hope that you have understood these examples that I've just given you. And I'm also going to include some more examples at the end of this video, but tricky ones, so that you can be sure that you have really understood these operators in C++, because they are used very often and you have to understand them in order to continue with your progress on a programming path. So make sure to do those examples on your own, and if you come across any problems or you have any questions that are related to this video, write those in the comments down below and I'm going to answer them. I'm going to help you. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and also click the bell icon so that you are first to be notified when I publish my next video. And I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I wanted to answer a question that I recently got, and that is a question that is often asked on job interviews, and also students get it on their exams. And that is a question on how you can swap the value of two variables. I'm going to give you two ways to solve this problem, but let me just explain what I mean by this. So I'm going to copy the text of this problem here, like this, and let me say that I have one variable which is going to be called A, and that variable is going to hold value of 20, let's say, and then I have another variable which is going to be called B, and that variable holds value of 10. And now I need to switch the value, so to swap the value of these two variables, I want my A to hold whatever my B is holding, and then I want my B to hold whatever my A is holding. So how we are going to do that? For the first explanation, I will need something, so let me get it. So here I have two glasses, and inside this left glass I have my green juice, and then inside this glass I have just plain water. And the question that we have in our Visual Studio is equivalent to a question how we can swap the content of these two glasses. And to solve that problem, I'm going to use another glass, so a temporary glass, and that is this one here. And I'm sorry guys, I know this is not a glass, it's a shaker, but it will do for this explanation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this glass, this variable, and I'm going to put its content inside this third glass, this temporary glass. Okay, and then when I have saved the value of this glass inside this temporary glass, what I can do is I can put my green juice, so the content of this glass, inside here. Okay, this is a bit more complex in real life than in programming. So once you do that, you have saved the value of this glass here, so the content of this glass here inside this glass, and now what we are left to do is just to put whatever our temp variable, our temp glass was holding inside this glass here. And now we have successfully accomplished to solve this problem. So we have switched the content of these two glasses. And let's just translate this into our code. Now that I have explained the algorithm to solve this problem, we are just going to translate that algorithm into C++ code. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, a temporary variable, which I'm going to call temp, and inside that temp variable I'm going to put whatever my A is holding. So I'm going to say that my temp holds now whatever is inside my A variable. And since we have our A variable free now to hold something else, I'm going to put my B value inside my A. So now my A is going to hold whatever my B is holding. And now that we have saved the value of our B inside our A variable, we can put inside our B whatever our temp variable is holding. So that is the value that previously was inside our A variable. And this here is really the algorithm to solve this problem using a third variable. And let's just quickly add a C out so that we can see what we have done. So our A is equal to A, and then our B is equal to our B. And let's add end line like this. And I'm going to add just a comma sign here. Okay, and if I run the program, you see now that here we have A is equal to 20 and B is equal to 10, and now we have successfully swapped the value of these two variables. So now my A is holding 10, and then my B is holding 20, which previously was inside my A variable. And this is a solution for our problem using a third variable. But this question is often asked in another way, and that is how you can swap the value of two variables without using a third variable. And now I'm going to explain that. So let me very quickly delete this until here, okay. And in order to solve this problem without using third variable, you will have to think in a more mathematical way. And the solution for this is going to be the following. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, let's say that my A variable is going to hold whatever my A is holding, and I'm going to add whatever my B is holding also. And this expression here would be really incorrect in any mathematics, but in programming this is a valid expression. And it means this here, whatever this expression results in, I'm going to assign that to my A variable. And this here is whatever my A is holding plus whatever my B is holding. Assign that to A. So that is going to be A, so 20, plus B, 10. That is equal to 30. So now in this line here, my A is going to hold the value of 30. And then in the next line, let's say now my B is going to hold whatever my A is holding, and then subtract whatever my B is holding from that. So in this line here, I'm going to say store inside my B the result of this expression here. And this expression will result in following. A, so 30, minus B, minus 10. That is going to be 30 minus 10, 20. So in this line here, my B is going to hold the value of 20. And then what we are left to do is just to put the correct value inside our A, and that is going to be A equal to A minus B. This means whatever my A is holding at this very moment, and that is 30, minus whatever my B is holding at this very moment, and that is 20. And guys, 30 minus 20 is going to result in 10, and our A is going to get the value of 10 in this line here. So now if I write out, C out, A is equal to A, and let's add end line, and then C out, B is equal to B, and if I run my program, you see that I'm going to get the expected result. So my A now is holding whatever my B was holding, so 10, and then my B is holding this value that previously was inside our A variable here. So we have solved this problem in two ways, so with or without a third variable. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to like it and to subscribe to my channel. And also any questions that you have, those in the comments down below, and share this video with anyone who'd like to learn programming. And I'm going to see you in my next video. And also guys, one question for you. If you have any recipes, any algorithms on how you can make green juice taste and smell good, please make sure to write those in the comments down below. Bye. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome to another video of C++ for beginners. I just got an idea of a simple and fun program that I can show you how you can build. And since I'm a bit of a fitness enthusiast myself, if you haven't noticed, I wanted to show you how you can build your own body mass index calculator. So stay tuned, make sure to subscribe, and let's build our own BMI calculator. Okay, so here is the text of my task, and what we are going to build is BMI calculator. So first I want to explain what is BMI calculator. It is body mass index calculator that is going to tell you whether you are underweight or normal weight or you are overweight, depending on your weight and your height. And here I'm going to use weight in kilograms and then height in meters. So if someone else wants to adjust this program so that it can work with pounds, feet, and inches, you can write out that code in the comments down below, and the first one that gets it right, I'm going to pin that comment so that everyone else can use it and see it. Okay, so we are going to use this formula here, which is used to calculating your BMI in metric system. So another thing that I want to mention is these three categories here. There are also some more categories that you can really calculate whether you are extremely underweight or you are extremely overweight, but these three should be enough for us to do now, and these three I'm going to cover in this code. Another disclaimer that I want to make is that this BMI calculator probably should not be used by people that have huge amounts of muscle, so professional bodybuilders, because even though they have muscle, that muscle is still weight, so even though they are not overweight, they will fall in the category of overweight because their BMI is going to be higher. But for most of us that don't have a lot of muscle, or are leading normal lives, training a couple of times a week maybe, this is going to be completely okay. So let's build our program. So here's our tool that we're going to use to draw this diagram, so lucid chart, and let's really develop the algorithm for solving this problem, and then we are going to translate that diagram, that algorithm into C++ code. So as you may already know, first thing that I'm going to put here is this shape here that is going to indicate the start position of my program, this circle shape here. And after that, we really need two things from our user, so two things that he should enter, and those are his height and his weight. So let's use this funnel shape here that is going to indicate something entering in your program, so visual representation. That's why I'm using that funnel shape. And inside here, I'm going to put two things that my user needs to enter. And those two things are these two things here. So his weight, and he should enter his weight in kilograms, and also his height, and let's say that he should enter his height in meters. So I'm going to use metric system for this problem. Okay, now let's indicate the flow of our program. It should flow like this. And after our user has entered his weight and his height, there is a simple calculation that our program needs to perform. And that calculation is going to be a process for our program. So the shape that I'm going to use for that is this shape here. So this shape that says process on it. And what our program should process, what our program should calculate, is it should calculate BMI. So I'm going to put here BMI is equal to, and then I'm going to put this formula here that is used to calculate BMI. Okay, so it's weight represented in kilograms divided by height to the power of 2. So I'm going to multiply my height with height. Okay, and this is really the calculation of our BMI. And And now, after our program has calculated this BMI, what we are left to do is we should, depending on this BMI, really write out to our user whether he's underweight or overweight or of a normal weight. So we should make a decision depending on this BMI, and for that decision we are using this decision shape, so this diamond shape, and inside this diamond shape I'm going to put a condition, and that condition is going to be, let's first check whether my BMI is lower than 18.5, like this. And in this situation where our user's BMI is lower than 18.5, so when this condition here results as yes, I'm going to write out something to my user. And let me find a shape. Okay, let's rotate this shape and delete this text. Okay, and what I want to write out to my user, oh, I can make this smaller. What I want to write out to my user in the situation where his BMI is lower than 18.5 is I want to write out that he is really underweight. So let's put text inside here and let's write out that he is underweight. So that is going to happen in this situation. Oh my god. That is going to happen in this situation here. Let me just, okay, that's okay. So in this situation where his BMI is lower than 18.5, we are going to write out that he is underweight. But in the situation where his BMI is not lower than 18.5, we have to check something else. And let's check, so let's add another of these diamond shapes. Where is it? Here. Okay, and let's now check whether his BMI is higher than 25. So I'm going to write out BMI greater than 25. Okay, and that is going to happen in the case that this here results as no. And in the situation where user's BMI is higher than 25, that really means that our user is overweight. So we are going to write out, oh, okay, so we are really going to write out a message to our user. So let's copy this shape here, which we are using to write out a message to our user. So this reversed funnel shape that represents something leaving your program, something being outputted from your program. So in the case where this calculation here results as true, we are going to write out to our user that he is overweight, like this. Okay, and let's really adjust this. Now it looks a bit more presentable. Okay, so first we have checked whether his BMI is lower than 18.5. If yes, we have written out underweight. If no, we have to check whether his BMI is greater than 25, and if it is, it means that he's overweight. But in the situation where this here results as a no, that means that our user's BMI is not lower than 18.5 and 25, and that is a normal BMI. So that is our last possible situation where we are going to write out to our user that he has a normal weight. So let's write out normal weight. Okay, so after we have covered these three cases, let's just join our flows into one. So I'm looking for this shape here, and I'm going to make it smaller, delete this text from it, and I'm really just going to join these flows inside this shape here. Let's just try to move this here. I'm going to delete it, and let's say that I'm going to, oh no. I had huge problems trying to adjust some arrows, so I had to rewrite this whole diagram, and I believe that I made it a bit prettier. So here we were explaining that in the case that our user has BMI lower than 18.5, we are going to write out this message to him. In the case that his BMI is not lower than 18.5, we are going to check whether it is greater than 25, and if yes, we are going to write out that he's overweight. If no, we are going to write out that he's of normal weight. And in each of these three cases, we are coming here to this diamond shape here, which is just going to join these three potential situations. And after this diamond shape here, we are going to write out to our user what his BMI really is, because I really want my user to know if he's, for example, in this situation here or in this situation here, I want him to know whether his BMI is, let's say, 18.4, so he's not that extremely underweight, but he's just a little bit underweight. Or in this situation here, I want him to know whether his BMI is 25.5, so he's just a little bit overweight, or his BMI is really 35, let's say. That's why I want to write out my BMI to my user, his BMI to my user, okay? So, and then we just really stop our program. So now I'm going to copy this diagram and put it next to my Visual Studio so that we can really translate this diagram here into our code. So here I have put this diagram and then also my Visual Studio, and let's now translate this diagram. Let's translate this algorithm into code, because this here really is an algorithm explanation on how to solve a certain problem. So the first thing that needs to happen is our user should enter his weight and his height. And for that to happen, I first need to declare variables for weight and height. And for that, I'm going to use type float, because his weight and height can be decimal point number. So I'm going to say float, and then I'm going to say weight and height. Okay, like this. And after that, let's put a message out to our user so that he knows that he should enter his weight and height. So I'm going to say cout weight, and let's put that he should enter his weight in kilograms, and then also height, but he should enter his height in meters, like this, so that he knows which system he should use. Okay, after we have written out this message here, what I need to do is I need to use my cin command so that I can allow my user to enter weight and height. And I'm going to say, first thing that my user enters, that's going to be stored inside my weight variable. And then after that, the second value that my user enters is going to be my height. So store that in a height variable, like this. Okay, and after we have entered weight and height, next thing that needs to happen is we need to do this formula here and really calculate our BMI. And in order to store this result, the result of this expression in our BMI, we need a variable for that, and that variable is obviously going to be called BMI. So let's add here, in this line here, let's add BMI. So I'm going to declare another variable, and that variable I'm going to use now, and I'm going to say that my BMI is going to be used as follows. So I'm going to use this formula here, which is our weight divided by our height to the power of 2. For now, I'm going to use it like this. Okay, and in this line here, we have really calculated our BMI, so this code here. And now, after we have calculated our BMI, what we should do is we should really check what is the value of that BMI. And for that, we are using this shape here, which really translates into if-else case. So first I'm going to say if, and then the first thing that I want to check is if my user's BMI is lower than 18.5, like this. And in this situation where his BMI is lower than 18.5, I'm going to execute one line of code, so that's why I don't need to put these brackets. So I'm going to delete them because I just want to execute one line of code, and that line of code is going to be indented here so that it is easier to read. And that line of code is really going to be a message that I want to write out to my user, and that message is going to be that my user is underweight, unfortunately. Okay, and let's add one end line, like this. Okay. This is in the situation where his BMI is lower than 18.5. In a situation where his BMI is not lower than 18.5, we're going to execute something else. So that something else we represent with else statement. And I'm going to put that else statement. And what is happening in that else case? It is happening another if else. So here we have a situation where we need to check something else. So here I'm going to put else if. So if this here results as no, please then check something else. And for that we use this else if statement. So I'm going to say else if, please check if my BMI is greater than 25 then. So in this situation we also want to execute one line of code, and that line of code is going to be to write out to my user that his BMI is greater than 25, which means that he is overweight. So let me copy this message here, and we are just going to adjust it. So I'm just going to say you are overweight, like this. Okay, so if his BMI is less than 18.5, I'm going to write out that he's underweight. Else, if his BMI is not lower than 18.5, I'm going to check whether his BMI is greater than 25. If yes, I'm going to write out that he's overweight. If no, we are also going to execute something else. And that is this situation here. So in this case, he has a normal weight. So let me again copy this message here. And let's really put here a normal weight like this. Okay, so in this situation where his BMI is not lower than 18.5, nor it's greater than 25, we are going to write out to our user that he has a normal weight. And with this here, with this code here, we have really covered this part of diagram here. Okay, and then after this code here executes, we really want to write out our BMI to the user. So we have to translate this shape here, which really translates into our cout command, and we want to write out your BMI is, and then let's write out BMI like this. Okay, and this line of code, as you may already see from our diagram, is going to execute in either this case or this case or this case, because after we have finished with this decision part, we have executed only this part of code or this part of code or this part of code here. So whichever of these three has been executed, after this code here, we are going to execute this line here in either this situation or this situation or this situation. And that is going to be writing out to my user what his BMI really is. And that is the last thing that we need to put, so the last part of our code. And now if I run my program, okay, it asks me to enter my weight and my height, and my weight is, I believe, 66 kilograms, I think, and then my height is 1.75, so let's press enter. Oh no, I'm overweight. Oh, my BMI is 66. Okay guys, for a moment I thought that I am overweight, but I am not definitely this 66 BMI overweight, so that means that we have a bug. So where are you, sneaky little buggy bug? Well, if you can see where our bug is, then write that in the comments down below. And I already see where potentially our bug could be. So this formula here, it should really go like this. So we should divide our weight with our height to the power of 2, which means that we should put parentheses here, like this. And that is this calculation here. So in this situation, our weight is going to be divided with our height, and after that, that number is going to be multiplied with our height. So we are going to get larger BMI than we should really. So we should put this code here in parentheses. So that was the first bug that really happened in these tutorials. Okay, I'm going to leave this part. I'm not going to edit it out. Okay, and now if I enter my weight, let's see, 66, and then my height 1.75. Okay, so I am 21.5, that is my BMI, and I am of a normal weight. So we have really built our BMI calculator, and this is the formula that you should use for a metric system. And if someone else wants to rewrite this program for pounds and inches and feet, you can write that in the comments down below, and as I said, I'm going to pin that comment up so that everyone can see it, if you of course get it right. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to write it in the comments down below, and I'm going to put more videos like this. And also subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon so that you are first to be notified when I publish a new video. Share this video with anyone who would like to learn programming, or also with fitness people that would just like to use this program. And if you don't know how you can run this program without using Visual Studio, I'm going to link my first video here. And at the end of that video, I'm explaining how you can run the program from Windows, and that should give you an idea on how you can really share your applications with other people. So make sure to subscribe, like, leave a comment, share, whatever you want, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to another video of C++ for beginners. In this video I wanted to explain the concept of ternary operator, also known as conditional operator, and also some people call it shorter version of if-else statement. It is an important concept that you are definitely going to come across in your programming career, and you should understand it. And I'm going to explain this concept through building fun and simple program that is going to be a guessing game. So let's explain the rules of this game. We need to have two users, and our first user, which I'm going to call host user, has to enter a number. After that, we have to delete that number from our console so that our second user cannot see it. And then after that, our second user, which I'm going to call guest user, has to enter his guess so that he can guess what number our first user has entered. So this way we can really make a fun program and learn an important concept at the same time. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you an idea or multiple ideas how you can really upgrade this program on your own. So make sure to watch the entire video. Now that we have explained the rules of this game, let's start building our program. And the first thing that we need to do is create two variables. Since we said that our user is going to be guessing numbers, those two variables are going to be definitely a number type. And let's say that that type is going to be integer, so integer numbers. And we need two variables. The first one is going to hold our first user number, so our host user number. And then our second variable is going to hold the number that our guest user enters. So let's call those two host user number, like this. And then the second one, let's call guest user number, like this. Okay. And now, after we have created these two variables, the next thing that we need to do is let's write out a message to our host user so that he knows that he should enter a number. So let's say cout, and let's just say host, like this, so that our host user really knows that he should enter a number. And I'm going to accept that number in my console using the cin command, and I'm going to store that number inside our host user number variable. So with this line here, we have entered our host user number. And what we have said at the beginning of this video is that after our host user enters the number, we really need to delete that number from our console so that our second user is not able to see it. And the command that I'm going to use for that is going to be this command here. So I'm going to say system, and then I'm going to say cls, which is really going to clear our console, so clear our screen. And now if I run my program, let's see how far we have made this program. Here we have this line, this seventh line, which says host user, and it expects our host user to enter a number. So I'm going to say, for example, 7. And then after I press enter, this number here really is deleted. So our console has been cleared. And now after this, we need to ask our guest user to guess the number that our host user has entered. So I'm going to stop the program, and next we need to write out a message to our guest user. So I'm going to say guest like this, and after that we need to accept what our guest user enters inside our guest user variable. So I'm going to copy this line here like this, and instead of accepting that value inside host user number, I'm just going to change this to guest user number. And after this part here, we really have both accepted our host user number and our guest user number, and now we need to compare these two and see whether our guest user has guessed correctly our host user's number. So how we can do that, if you're familiar with if-else statements, and I'm going to link that video here, and if you're familiar with them, that is really one way to solve this problem. So you can solve this problem with if-else statements, and I'm going to do that, and then we are going to really convert that if-else statement into a ternary operator. So how we can solve this with if-else statements? Well, it is quite simple solution. So we have to say if, and then inside these parentheses, I'm going to really compare these two numbers. So host user number and guest user number. So I'm going to say host user number is equal to guest user number, like this. And then if this here results as true, so if these two numbers are the same, we can write out a message to our user, and that message is going to be, let's say, correct, like this. So our user has guessed correctly. But in a situation where this here results as false, we can use our else statement. And in this else situation, let's write out a different message to our user. So let's say cout, and then inside these quotation marks, let's say failed, like this. So that in the case where these two are the same number, we can write out to our user that he has guessed correctly, and then in a situation where these two are not the same, we can write out to our user that he has failed in guessing. So if I run my program now, you see that it expects our host user to enter a number, and I'm going in this situation to take the role of both host and guest user. So I'm going to enter 7, for example, and then you see that that 7 number has been deleted from our console because of this command here, and now our program expects our guest user to enter his number, and I even forgot what number I entered. So let's say that our host user has entered, for example, 11, and you see that our program says you have failed, so you haven't guessed correctly. And one more time, let's enter for our host user number 5, for example, and then let's say that our guest user also says number 5, and our program says you have guessed correctly. So this is one potential solution for this problem, but I wanted to show you how you can solve this problem using ternary operator. And now I'm going to comment this code here, like this. So this is a comment for multiple lines of code. And let's really translate this part of code here into a ternary operator, like this. Okay, so how does the ternary operator work? Well, it is the only operator that takes 3 operands or works on 3 operands, and the first operand is going to be a condition. So I'm going to copy this condition here, which is our host user number equal to our guest user number? So that is going to be the first operand. And after that first operand, we need to put this question mark. And then after this question mark, we have the following behavior. If this expression here, so if this condition here is true, we are going to execute one line of code, or actually one part of code, and that is going to be this line here. But in the situation where this here results as false, we are going to execute whatever we put after this column sign. So that is going to be our cout failed, like this. And this is really the syntax for our ternary operator. And as you can see, it really is a shorter form of if-else statement. So this line of code really means, please check this condition here. And if this condition here results as true, execute this part of code here. But if this code here results as false, please execute whatever I put after my column sign. So that is going to be our cout failed. And now if I run the program, it asks again for our host user to enter the number. Let's enter number 9, for example. And then our guest user has to guess the number. So let's enter, for example, number 3. And you can see that our program says to our guest user that he has failed in guessing. So there are a couple of ways in which you can really upgrade this program, and I'm going to give you a few ideas. And the first one is, for example, you don't have to use int type here, so you can use different data type. You can guess characters, or you can guess even strings if you know how to. And if some of you want to play with that and try that on their own and you get it right, make sure to paste that code in the comments down below, and I'm going to check it. And if you get it right, I'm going to pin that comment up so that everyone else can see it. So that would be one way of upgrading this program. Another way to upgrade this program is to make it easier to your guest user. And how do I mean easier? Well, you can really limit your host user to enter a number that is going to be in a certain interval. For example, you can say to your host user that he can enter only a number that is going to be between, let's say, 1 and 15 or 50. It depends on how difficult you want to make it to your guest user. And that would be one way also of upgrading this program. And another, and the best way of upgrading this program is going to be when we learn loops. And when we do that, I'm going to link the video here. And how you can upgrade this program using loops. Well, you can give your guest user multiple attempts. So you can say, for example, let my guest user guess 3 times or 5 times before I say game over, you have failed. Okay. So I hope that you have liked this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends and with other people that would like to learn programming, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome to another C++ for Beginners tutorial. And I'm really excited for making this video because this video is going to be a milestone. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can build your own calculator application. So if you have watched my previous videos and you are also watching this one and you build this application together with me, you should really feel proud of yourself because you have made a great progress. So let's build that application now. Here I have opened my Visual Studio, and let's very quickly explain what we want to do before we start to write code. So I want my user to enter 2 numbers and also operation sign, and then depending on those 2 numbers and that operation, we want to calculate the result and then write that result to our user. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to declare variables that are going to hold those numbers and that operation sign. And since we want our user to be able to enter decimal point numbers, so not only integers, but decimal point numbers as well, we are going to declare variables that can hold decimal point numbers, and those can be float and double. So let's declare float variable, for example, and let's call it num1, which is going to hold our first number, and also another one which is going to be called number2 and hold our second number. And after we have declared these 2, let's also declare a variable that is going to hold our operation sign. And since that is a character, we need to use a character type for that variable. So let's say char, and let's call that variable operation, like this. Okay, and now after we have created these 3 variables, we can really allow our user to enter his numbers and his operation. And we want to do that in the following order. So we want to say cin, and then first our user has to enter the first number, and then after that we want our user to enter the operation sign. So let's say operation, like this, and after that our user has to enter the second number. And this window here, guys, this is called Intellisense, and it really makes your code writing easier. So you can navigate this list here using your arrows, and then you can also use tab key so that it finishes your variable name for you if you want that. Okay, so now we have entered our first number, our operation, and then our second number as well, like this. And another thing that I want to write out to my user, because this is going to be the best calculator ever, let's write that title to our user. So let's write here, before he enters anything, a quick title. So let's say Cout, and then let's say that it's going to be called Code Beauty Calculator. You can call yours whatever you want. So like this, and let's add these here so that it looks prettier. Okay, and now if I run my program, well, you see that it really looks like this. And now we are able to enter one number. After that, we want our user to enter operation like this, and then we want to enter the second number like this. And then after we press enter, our program should really calculate the result of this operation. In this current situation, it is not really doing anything else because we haven't written code for that. Okay, so now let's solve this problem that we have here. So at this point, you should really have an idea yourself on how to solve this problem using if-else statements and also nested if-else statements. So if you're not familiar with those, I'm going to link one of my previous videos here. So make sure to watch that video as well. But in this video, I want to show you the more appropriate way for solving this particular problem. And that is going to be using switch case statement. So what is switch case statement? Well, switch case statement is, as well as if-else statement, used when you want to execute a block of code depending on a certain condition. So depending on a value of a certain variable. But switch case statement is particularly used in a situation where that variable can potentially hold a lot of different values. And if you look at our operation variable here, you should really notice that this variable can hold 6 different values. And what are those 6? Well, our user can decide to enter operation for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, modulating, and then what if our user does not really want to use our application, but he wants to hack it? So if he decides that he doesn't want to enter one of these 5, but he really enters some non-valid arithmetic operation, we should also cover that case. So we should really, as programmers, predict all these 6 situations and cover all these 6 cases. I'm going to add one end line here so that my text is formatted nicely. And then let's really show how this switch case statement is used. So the first thing that I want to write is switch, like this. And then if you press tab, you see that you are getting some default syntax for this switch case. For now, I'm going to delete that, and I want to show you how you can really write that yourself. And inside these parentheses here, I want to write out the name of my variable that I want to switch through or switch on. And that is going to be my operation variable, because depending on the value of this operation variable, we are going to perform a different calculation on these 2 number variables. So I'm going to say here operation, and then in these curly brackets here, we really want to cover all our cases. So the first case, let's say that our first case is going to be a situation where our user enters minus operator. So I'm going to use these single quotes, and then inside these single quotes, I'm putting the value that our variable can potentially hold, and that is this minus operator here. And after that, I'm going to add this column sign here, like this. And then after this column sign, I really want to put out whatever code I need to execute in the case that our operation corresponds to this sign here. And what I want to execute in this case is I want to say Cout, and let's write out our first number, and then let's write out our operation, And then let's write out our second number so that our user really gets a nicely formatted text. And after that, I'm going to add this is equal to sign. And here we are going to put really our result. And that result is going to be our first number minus, because our user has entered this minus, so our first number minus our second number. So let's write out number 1 minus number 2, like this. And after we have covered this first case, we need to add one more keyword, and that is going to be break. And this break keyword is really used so that our switch case statement knows where our first case ends. So I'm saying here, whenever my operation is equal to this sign here, you are going to execute this code, and you should really stop executing that case when you come to this break statement. Okay, so this is going to be our first case. Our second case is going to be a situation where our user, let's say, enters this plus sign. And in that situation, we really want to write out to our user this text here. So the same text, we want to really write out our first number plus, in this case, our second number, and that is equal to, and then we are going to add really this calculation here. So number 1 plus number 2, like this. And in this situation as well, we want to add this break statement at the end, like this. Okay, so these are two potential cases, and now I'm going to really write out the rest of them. So I have written out these remaining cases, and in each of these cases we really want to write out to our user his first number, after that his operation, second number, and then this equal sign. And then in each of these cases we are performing adequate calculation, so we are performing that operation that our user has entered and writing that result out to our user. And after each of these cases we really need to put this break statement. And you really have to put this break statement, because if you don't, you are going to get your program to behave as you don't want it to. And as you can see, in this situation here, so in this situation where we are trying to modulate two numbers, we are getting an error. And if we hover over this number here, you can see that our error says expression must have integral or unscoped enum type. What does that mean? Well, if you haven't watched my video on operators, I suggest you to do so. I'm going to link it here. And here I'm quickly going to explain what is happening. So this operation here, this modulo operation, is operation that is really going to give you a remainder after dividing two whole numbers. And since this number here and this number here are of type float, we really cannot perform this calculation on these two variables. So what we have to do is we first have to check whether this number is really an integer number, whether it's a whole number, and this number as well. And since our float can hold decimal point numbers and integers as well, we really, in certain situations only, can perform this modulating operation. And let me explain what I mean by this, that our float can hold decimal point numbers and integers as well. Well, this variable here, this number variable, can really have value of 5.5, for example, but it can hold as well value of 5.0, which is really integer value, so it's 5 only. So now what we have to do is following. I'm going to delete this line here, and we first have to check whether both of these numbers are integers, and in that situation only we can perform this calculation. But in a situation where one of these two or both of them are not integers, we are going to write out to our user that that operation is not valid. So I'm deleting this code here. And then let's create two variables. So let's create a variable of type bool, and let's call it is num1 integer. So this variable is going to hold a value that is going to tell us is our number 1 integer value. And let's also create another variable that is going to be called is num2 int, and as well this variable is going to tell us whether our number 2 is integer. And let's develop now an algorithm so that we can know whether our number 1 or number 2 is integer number. And I'm going to ask you to write your solutions in the comments down below. So pause the video, think about it, and then write your solution. And without using any already made functions, as programmers, as engineers, you should really be able to figure out the solution on your own. So applying the knowledge that you have gotten from my previous videos, or this one, but I'm going to say from my previous videos. So pause video and write your solution. So this question is not really a question of programming, it's more of a question of thinking in a logical way. And if you remember when we were talking about casting operators, we said that the casting operator is used to convert one data type into the other. And I'm going to link that video here. If you haven't watched it, make sure to do so. And here we are going to try to convert our floating point number, so our number 1 and our number 2, into integer data type, so into integer number. And how we are going to do that? Well, we are really going to say int, so this here is going to cast whatever we put after it into int type. And we are going to say, please try to convert my number 1 into integer. And how does this work? Well, for example, if you have a number 1 that holds value of 5.7, when you try to convert that value into integer, what it does really, it says that 5.7, so that 0.7 part really, bye-bye. I'm going to take only this 5 part, so only this whole part of a number. So in that situation, we are really going to get only 5 from this 5.7 floating point number. So what I'm going to say now is I'm going to say whatever this expression here, this casting operation results with, I'm going to really try to compare that with the initial value of my number 1 variable. So I'm going to say num1 is my converted number 1, so converted to integer, equal to number 1, like this. And how does this calculation here work? Well, as I said, for example, if you have a number 1 that holds a value of 5.0, so 5.0, this part here is really going to take this 0.0 part of a number and delete it. It's going to keep only this 5, so only this whole part of a number. And after that, we have this is equal to operator, and then we are trying to really check whether that is equal to 5.0. And the result of this is going to be true. So with this here, we have checked really whether our number is going to be equal to our floating point number. So this result here, we are going to assign this value to our is number 1 integer variable. So here I'm going to say, please assign the result of this operation to our is number 1 integer variable, like this. And let's put this expression here, so this whole expression inside these parentheses, so that we really can see that this is an expression, and the result of this expression should be assigned to this is number 1 int variable. And now we are going to do the same for our is number 2. So I'm going to say is number 2 integer, and we are going to say that that is equal to, I'm trying to convert my number 2 to int, and then compare that to my float number 2. And after this, we really can now do our algorithm to perform this modulo, where it is this modulo operation on our 2 numbers in the case where both of them are integers. So here I'm going to say if is my number 1 int, and then also is my number 2 int, like this. In this situation here, I'm going to perform this modulo operation. And as you can see here, I have used only these 2 Boolean values here in this expression. So I didn't say, please check is my number 1 int equal to true, like this, nor I have said please check is my number 2 equal to true, like this, because this part here and this part here are really redundant, and what this expression here translates in, is true equal to true, and that is really redundant. So I'm going to remove this part here and this part here, and it should work fine like this for Boolean values, so Boolean variables. And in this situation here, where both of these are integers, we really can perform this modulo operation. So in this situation here, I'm going to take this code and I'm going to copy it like this, and I'm going to say please break out my number 1, then my operation, then my number 2 is equal to sign, and then here I'm going to put adequate calculation. So I'm going to say take my number 1, convert it to int, and then modulate that with my number 2 that is as well converted to int, like this. Okay, so in this situation where both of these are integers, we are going to really write out the result of modulating operation to our user. Let's add empty space here and here as well. But in the situation where one of these two is not integer, or both of them are not integers, I'm going to say else, and in that situation I'm really going to write out to my user that this operation is not valid. So let's say just not valid, like this. So in any of these two situations, whether we write out this line of code here or this line of code here, after that we are going to come here, and here we have to put our break statement, like this. So after each case comes break. And now we can really test this part of code here that we have written. So if I run my program, the first thing that I want to test is, let's say 5.5 plus 2.2, and we get the expected result, so 7.7. Let's run our program again, and this time I want to check whether my modulo operation is working as it should, because this code here is really specific. So let's say 5 modulo 2, like this, and as well we have gotten correct result. And let's run our program one more time. And here I really want to trick my program and try to make it modulate two numbers that are not whole numbers. So 5.2 modulated by 2. And as well, our program works as it should. So it says not valid operation. Okay. So if you have noticed, in this current situation, I really have to run my program each time that I want to perform a calculation. And that is because we haven't learned anything about iteration or loops so far. And those videos are coming, so make sure to subscribe to my channel and also click the bell icon so that you are notified when I publish those videos. And in that situation where we learn iteration and loops, we are really going to be able to run our programs indefinitely, which means to run our calculator application until we really decide to stop it. Okay, so after we have covered these 5 cases here, there is only one situation left to cover, and that is a situation where our user enters any other sign that is not one of these 5 here. And in that situation, we are really going to write like this. So we are going to say default. So in the case where our user enters operation that is not going to correspond to any of these 5 signs, we are going to execute our default situation. And here we really want to write out a message to the user that is trying to hack our program. So you can write whatever message you want to the user that is trying to hack the program that you have worked so hard to build. And I'm going to put here okay. You really can write out whatever you want to that type of user, like this. So in the case where our user has not entered this, nor this, nor this, nor this, nor this, which means our user has entered some other sign, we really want to write out not valid operation. And let's test now our default case. So I'm going to run the program, and I'm going to take the role of a malicious user that is going to try to hack your application, and I'm going to say, let's try to perform this calculation here. So 5Z9. Not really. You have been smart enough to predict his malicious behavior, and you have said, if you haven't put here a valid arithmetic operation, then no, I cannot help you. This is not a valid operation. And there is really one thing that you have been wondering about for the most part of this video, and that is this break statement here. So why I have said that after each case you have to put break. And now you want me to explain that, do you? Do you really? Wouldn't that be a spoiler for a situation where you decide on your own to delete this break statement here, and then run your program even though I have said not to, and you enter some calculation, and you remember that I have said that you are going to get unexpected behavior, but was she lying? Was she not? And then you decide to execute this calculation, and boom, here's your unexpected behavior. So what has happened here? Well, your program has really recognized that this operation here that you have entered is this minus operation. And after that, it has written out this number 1, so 7, and then operation minus, and then this number 2, 5, is equal to, and then it has calculated number 1 minus number 2, which is 7 minus 5, and that is equal to 2. And after that, it has really continued executing other cases, which means it has come to this line here, and then it has written one more time your number 1 minus number 2, so 7 minus 5 is equal to, and then it has performed this number 1 plus number 2 calculation, and 7 plus 5 is going to be equal to 12. And then it has come to this first break command, and it has stopped the execution of your switch case. So why has this happened? It has happened because you haven't put this break command here, and in that case your program is really going to be executing your cases until it comes to the first break command. And if you have noticed here, in this default situation I haven't really put any breaks. You can as well put your break statement here, you can say break here, but even if you don't, even if you didn't put your break here, and your program really tries to execute something after this line here, there is really nothing to execute, so you are not going to get a problem in this situation here. I hope that you liked this video and that you have built your own calculator application, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon as well. Share this video with anyone who would like to learn programming, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye! Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, welcome to another video of C++ for beginners. And in this video I wanted to deepen your knowledge of switch case. So if you're not familiar with switch case at all, if you haven't watched my previous video, you definitely have to do that. The link is going to be here. And in this video I wanted to give you some more examples that you can practice on and introduce some things that I haven't mentioned in my previous video as well. So in this video we are going to build a program that is going to require from our user to enter a year and a month as well, and then our program has to write out how many days there is in that month. So how we are going to do that, let's see. But first you have to subscribe to my channel and like this video and also share it with your friends. As I explained, there are two things that we need from our user to enter, and those are going to be month and year. So let's create two variables. Let's say year and month, like this. And now I'm going to write out a message to my user so that he knows that he should enter those two values. So year, and after that, please enter month, like this. And let's store now the values that our user enters. So the first one is going to be stored inside our year variable, and then the second one is going to be stored inside our month variable. And now we have really covered everything that we need from our user. Now our program has to check these two variables and then decide how many days there is in that month of that year. And we are going to do that using switch case statement. But there is one thing that I want to mention before we start write our switch case. and that is you have to take in consideration that there are years that are leap years and that have one day more than the year that is not a leap year. And there is a rule for that, so I'm going to copy the rule that is going to help us to determine whether a year is a leap year or not. And that is this rule here. So any year that when modulated by 4 gives the result of 0, and at the same time that year modulated by 100 is not equal to 0, or a year, so that same year when modulated by 400 is going to give the result of 0. And this here is going to be a definition for our leap year, which means a year that has 366 days, or a February inside this year has 29 days. That's why we need this rule here. So now let's write out our switch case statement, and if you haven't watched my video on switch case statement, I am going to link it here one more time because you really need to understand the switch case, and then you can come back to this video and deepen your knowledge on switch case. So switch, this is going to be the syntax of our switch case, but I'm going to delete this default syntax. We want to write it ourselves. So inside these parentheses here, I'm going to put the variable that we are going to switch through, and that is going to be our month variable, like this. So whichever value our user has entered for our month, we are going to cover all the potential values that our month can hold in our cases. So the first case that I want to cover is going to be the most specific one, and that is going to be our February, which means second month. So I'm going to say in the case that this month variable is equal to 2, which means that our user is requesting from us to determine how many days our February month has. We really, in this case, need to check whether that year is a leap year or not. And then if that year is a leap year, that means that our February has 29 days. And if not, which means if this condition here is not true, that means that our second month has 28 days. So I'm going to copy this expression here, this condition. And also, if you are not familiar with ternary operator, you have to watch that video, because in this video we are going to use that ternary operator. You can do it as well with if-else statement, but I want you to practice also this, because you are going to actually come across it in your programming career. So here I'm putting this condition for a leap year, and I'm going to say this question mark, and then I'm going to say if this here is true, you have to write out this line of code. So you have to write out cout, and if this condition here is true, that means that our year is a leap year, which means that our February, our second month, has 29 days. So let's say 29 days month, like this. Okay. And so that is in the situation where this here is true. And in the situation where this expression here results as false, I'm going to put here a column sign, and then I'm going to write out a different message, and that is going to be that this second month, in the case where a year is not a leap year, has actually 28 days. So after we have written this expression here, so this ternary operator, we have really written out how many days there is in our February month, and after each case I have to put break. So in this case as well, I'm going to put our break command after it. And with this example, with this case here, we have really covered our second month, which was the most specific one. Now we are left to cover the remaining months, which means ones that have 31 days and also ones that have 30 days. And here I'm going to show you something that I haven't shown you before. Let me scroll this code like this, maybe. Okay. And then there are some months that contain 30 days and some that contain 31 days. And the ones that contain 30 days are following. So I'm going to write out case like this. And then the first month that contains 30 days is going to be April, so fourth month. And then also our sixth month contains 30 days. And then also, let's see, fourth, sixth, ninth, and then November as well, like this. And here we have written out really all the months that contain 30 days. Okay, and now I'm going to, at the end, so at this case here, write out a message. Let me copy this, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to say 30 days month, like this. Okay, and I'm going to put break command here as well. So let me explain this part of code here, because we haven't seen this part of code here before. This break statement, what it does is when your program execution actually comes to this case here, it says, okay, my month is equal to 2, so I'm going to execute this part of code here, and then it comes to this break command, and this break command really breaks the execution of your switch, which means that when your program comes to the first break command, it is going to stop the execution of your switch there, which means that it is not going to check any more cases. And because of that, you can really here, so you can put more than 1 month. You can put all months that have 30 days, like this, and then you can write out the same message and put one break command at the end. And how that is going to really behave inside your program, in the case where a user enters, for example, month 6, your program is going to check whether that month is equal to 2, and it's not going to be. Then it's going to check whether your month is equal to 4, not as well. And then it's going to come here and say, okay, this is 6th month that our user has entered. So please execute whatever code you find until you come to the first break. And that is going to be this here, which is empty, so nothing. And then this here, which is as well empty, so nothing. And then it comes to this code here. And that line, so this code here, contains this cout message, 30 days month. So it is going to write out this, and then it really comes to this first break command, and it breaks your switch, which means that it is not going to check any other cases that come after this break. Okay, so in any case, whether your user enters month 4 or 6 or 9 or 11, your program is going to execute this line here and then break your switch. So with this part of code here, we have really covered all months that have 30 days, and now we are left to cover the ones that have 31 days. And those are months, let's see, that is our January, and then our 3rd month, and our 5th, and our 7th month, like this. Let me scroll it a little bit more. Okay, and then we have as well case 8 and case 10, and as well our December has 31 days. So there are 7 months that have 31 days, 5 months that have 30 days, and 1 month that has 28 or 29 days. And in this line here, we are going to write out a message that is going to say 31 days month. And as well here, we have to put our break command, like this. Okay, so I am going to run my program now and show you how this program behaves. So our program is asking us to enter a year and a month. Let's say the year is going to be 2020, which is current year, and then a month is going to be, let's see, it's April, so 4th, and it says that it is a 30-day month, which is April has 30 days. And let's run our program one more time, and let's say 2020 again, and let's say that we want to check our 2nd month, and it says that February of 2020 has 29 days, which is correct as well. And there is really one more situation that I want to cover, and that is going to be a situation where our user enters a number that is not a valid month number. And that situation I'm going to cover with my default statement. So I'm going to write out default, and in this default case as well, I want to write out a message to my user like this, and inside here I'm going to say not valid, which means that our user has not entered a valid month number. So let's run our program, and if I enter year 2020, and for a month, let's say -5, for example, you see that our program has written out not valid. Okay, so I hope that you have liked this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel and share it with anyone who would like to learn programming as well. And today is May the 2nd. That's when I'm filming this video. I don't know when I'm going to publish it, probably in a couple of days. And currently we